Yeah, I'm Terry Bracher, Heritage Service Manager for Wiltshire Council, and I'm pleased to be able to talk about the Explore Wiltshire app with you today. I think, Marissa, if we can go to the second slide, please. Brilliant, wonderful. So actually, the slide before, I think slide, previous slide, this could be interesting. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. That's slide 2. Thank you. So actually, we need to go back to 2018 and the Salisbury Novichok incident. Some of you may remember. And our original work with the apps came out of that in trying to get people back into the city centre amongst a number of packages. After Novichok, people were slow to come back into the centre. And we were looking at how we could use heritage to engage people in new ways and staying longer in the city centre. And we looked at developing an app, a Heritage Trail app. And from that, we kind of wanted to expand that to look at really more broadly, I suppose, how we would deliver that for other Wiltshire towns. And this is how the Explore Wiltshire app came about. So the key drivers, as I mentioned, is really about engaging new audiences in heritage and cultural activity, particularly through archives, and trying to get people to stay in the market towns. You know, we've always had a problem, or more recently had a problem with people using out of town shopping, etc. And we're wanting people to have more of an experience in those towns and develop the visitor economy. So they were our key drivers. What we did know we wanted the app to be free to download. We wanted it to be location aware. And also we wanted it to make sure that people got out walking as well, because being active and well-being and prevention strategies are all part of our council business plan. So we're very keen to include that as well. And I suppose the big area for us was that we wanted town and parish councils to be able to add their own content, and also community organisations and heritage organisations. So very much developing something from the bottom up, really, if you will. So we worked with Calvium with their place experience platform. And the key thing for us was, and I think Fabrizio has mentioned it before, a really strong content management system, which enables us to add and manipulate content. It's funded by the Wiltshire Towns Programme, a central fund from the government. And most of the content comes from the History Centre, but also we use our partners in museums and town councils as well to add content. Next slide, please. So we're very fortunate to get Phil Harding on board, and what we really wanted to do was make sure we right from the beginning, we wanted to have, I suppose, what we could say a notable media historian or archaeologist. And Phil's been absolutely brilliant by courtesy of Wessex Archaeology. He's a Wiltshire man. He knows Wiltshire so well. He's a real intimate knowledge of its history and archaeology. He's been able to add a layer for us, and he's been able to give a good guide to Wiltshire and also guides to the places we feature as well. And it's a lovely little hook to get people interested in the app, which you may perhaps not look at that app. We've also obviously got on the beginning we have guides on how to use the app. So I'm going to power through a few slides just to show you how it looks and feels, and then I'm going to concentrate more a bit on how we created the stories. Next slide, please. So we've got 10 towns on so far. We're due to put a couple more, Tisbury and Wilton, on in the next week or so, and we've got 10 more to add. There's 22 market towns stroke cities in Wiltshire, and that's been our concentration at the moment. And the beauty of this is that the app is that you can upload the place that you're interested in, and you can remove that when you've finished with it, so you don't need to chock up your phone with data. You can upload and download it as you wish, and it's proving to be quite a good way of delivering that for each town. So can I go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So one thing that was really key for us also was to enable market towns to have some marketing. And when you download the app initially, you get slides, introduction slides to the towns. And we thought these were a really good opportunity for towns to deliver their messages. So you can see these are from Marlborough, where we're talking about people about the town, wanting to stay and eat and drink, spend more time in the town, more money, go to the cultural events and activities, and also explore further afield and get active. So really key for us to have that feature in our app. Next slide, please. So the main landing page includes a message, well, a little intro to each town from Phil Harding again, very detailed with his own little slants, and really knowledgeable, but nice little snappy bits of audio. But the key things you'll see there on the menu is that we have sites, trails, hunts, and events. And I'm going to just briefly talk about all of those. You also get a little intro, a written intro, as you see, into the town at that point as well. So if you can go to the next slide. So in terms of the sites, they're really, I suppose, is the key driver of app content, because that's where most of our content sits. So it enables us to put archives, information from archives in, historic images on slider, audio and video. And in a sense, you don't need to use this as a trail. It enables users to wander around the town without following a trail, and you can get alerts and you can filter, so you can change the look and feel, and you can change the proximity so that you can always get, if you wish, the site closest to you at the top. So it's a nice way of wandering the town without necessarily following a trail. Providing you've got it open, you'll always get an alert. And I'll explain more about sites when I discuss the content. Can I go to the next trail? Sorry, next slide, please. Next trail. I'm actually going to talk the next one is about a trail. So I suppose the trails are really a collection of sites, but they're grouped in a themed way. And so users can follow the trail if they choose. And again, they'll get alerts as they get nearer the site. You can use it as a hybrid, as a satellite view, or as a hybrid view of a map and satellite, or as a map. The beauty for us with this is that we're able to manipulate the routes on the trail. So we can take people on routes, not necessarily a direct route between sites. So we can take them through perhaps shopping areas or safe places to cross the road and things like that. And that's proven to be a great boost to us using that. Can we go to the next slide? So the other feature which we've really enjoyed working with, and I think it presents a nice challenge for us, particularly as those working archives and in local history. And I should say that at History Centre we have 8 miles of archives going back 800 years, so we've got plenty to choose from. And the key is, how do we make it fun? How do we make it engaging? And how do it in a different way? And the hunt section has been great, because it's kind of giving people, same that families, it's giving them multiple choice questions, or they can go around and spot and collect and get a virtual reward. And other town councils also used it in a way which we probably hadn't thought about, which is they're using it particularly during holidays. Warminster Town Council is a great example. They're using it to show people around the town, follow around shops by having trails such as pumpkin hunts and things like that. So each shop has a pumpkin in it, on that particular trail, and it's encouraging people to go around the town centre past those shops. So it's another interesting way in which they've used it, and I think Warminster has been particularly active in that, but other towns are also following suit as well. So it's another great feature. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is our events calendar as well. So we're also keen to enable towns and villages to market their local events as well, while we had people on using the app. So it's a good opportunity not to be missed. As we've had this little feature added, we're going to be developing that a bit more with Calvium later. And again, it's a real good opportunity for towns to boost their visitor economy. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Right. Okay. So now I just want to talk a bit about the curation of our archives and the curation of the stories in the sites, in the content. What we try to do, I suppose, is try not to be too factual. I suppose a bad analogy in a way, but more tabloid than broadsheet, if you will. And we want to try and get stories that hooked people in, as Fabrizio has mentioned in his previous example. So, for example, this is Chippenham and Ye Old Hall. Now, we didn't start saying it was built in 1450 and so on, so on. We looked for a hook, and we settled on it 100 years later. Started with 1560 with William Sharrington, and William Sharrington rose through Henry VIII's court. And by the time of Edward VI, he was put in charge of the Bristol Mint. But he was a bit of a crook, so he defrauded the Mint. He joined a failed rebellion against Edward Seymour, the protector of Edward VI. He was pardoned, he lost a fortune, regained a fortune. We're asking people, imagine yourself as William Sharrington, because now you've regained your fortune and you're standing in front of the Old Hall and you've purchased that hall. And what that means is you can charge people for tolls and fares. So it's kind of trying to give them a different angle, and then we can start talking about the details of when it was built and what it looks like. We also actually found within our records a bit about pirates being held, because there's also a jail at the Old Hall. And so in 1709, there were 6 pirates in custody, and 1 shilling was spent on 7 quarts of ale for the pirates. 6 pirates, 7 quarts of ale. Don't know who got the 7th, probably the jailer, I think. But the key thing again is try and find an interesting angle and drawing people in, not just the same sort of angle, same sort of standard, I suppose, format. And again, with the lion in, a very good example. Again, you might think, what's the Great Fire got to do with that? Well, the interesting thing is in 1666, 2 men, John Woodman and Henry Baker, were having, I suppose, a drunken argument over some business dealings in the pub. And at the same time, there's a lot of bonfires being lit around Chippenham and all around the country to celebrate the defeat of the Dutch fleet. And in his, I suppose, his drunken stupor, the Woodman said, "Oh, you'll have had enough of bonfires, and you mark my words, in a few days, the whole of London will be alight." And of course, we didn't know that a few days later there'll be a great fire of London. At which point, Henry Baker informed his MP, and Woodman had to go on the run because they took it quite seriously about who had perhaps started the fire. So it's quite another little angle that we've been able to use and get people interested in that site in Chippenham. And the one you see on the right, the African preacher, the tabernacle in Chippenham, it's a little extract from a newspaper about an African preacher in 1774. But what that does, it gives us an opportunity to talk about the early black history in Wiltshire and in Chippenham, which goes back in Wiltshire goes back to 1586. And we've been also able to add an audio as well to give a bit more layer, a bit nuanced, more nuanced detail on that, and talk things about like language that was used in those days as well. Next slide, please. And this is my final slide. We've been experimenting with audio, and that's been quite useful. We need to do it more. We want to get more community voices on there. At the moment, we've got some curators, but we have got artists and poets. We're able to give an interesting insight, particularly in Bracher-on-Avon, and why the town's called Sniffy, because everyone was working at the rubber factory and sniffed up the dust and was sniffing all the time. And it's those lovely little insights that we got. And this one, which I've shown you here, the obelisk, has Dorothy Treasure, a buildings historian, talking about the buildings and the origins of Warminster. So we're using audio quite a lot. Again, we're looking at odd stories where we can find them in left field. For example, you can see there's one of the Warminster thing. This is based on the 1964-65 phenomena of some strange happenings going on in Warminster. And you may remember that Warminster became known as the UFO capital of Britain at the time during the 60s and 70s. So another little story, just little ways of getting people interested in drawing them into the heritage. And there's a lovely mural on the wall. And lastly, just to finish, I suppose, is talking briefly about the use of cinefilm. Now, for this, we do have to go out into our YouTube channel, I think the link's going to be posted in the chat. And what we've done is working with Windrose Rural Media, who we work with to digitise our cine film. We've been able to put a few cine clips on as well, again, to enhance the content. And the one I've shown you there, I do have a look at it. It's a lovely 1909 film of the visit of Prince George, or later King George, to Warminster, and either at the beginning or the end of the visit, there's a mock bicycle accident with almost like Keystone Cops, and it's really great. But we've got lots of videos on there, and you can be welcome to explore them on our YouTube channel or download them, of course, and use them on the app. I suppose I'd just like to finish by saying, I guess the challenge for us now is we want to push this out to town councils to add their own content, create their own trails, create their own hunts, and also for community organisations. And it's about how they are going to curate those stories, because obviously the natural thing to do is to replicate your straightforward town trail you've already got in print. And I think what we'd like to encourage is everyone to get a bit more engaging and trying to get new audiences engaged through these stories. So I'm going to stop there. I'm probably about a minute over time, so apologies, Ben, and I'll finish there.
No worries. Thank you very much, Terry. That was a brilliant talk. And yeah, again, to get so much in such a short amount of time is appreciated, quite apart from the preparation that you've clearly put into it. So yeah, brilliant stuff. There's been lots of engagement in the comments as well. So I'm just going to cherry pick a couple of them. So the first one was about user numbers. Yeah, just interested from Angie Bolton. Not sure if that's full name or Angie from Bolton, so apologies. Yeah, just do you know?
Yeah, we've got some great analytics on our content management system, so we can even drill down to the number of users who use which site, etc. We're about, since we launched, and it's been the launches every time we put a town out, and we get spikes. So at the moment, since we launched about late June, early July, as we've adding towns, been growing about 3,500 users at the moment. Similarly, about 2,500 to 3,000 sites have been visited, but that's growing all the time. And as we put more towns on and we grow the towns, that's increasing. We're seeing lots of spikes every time we launch.
That's absolutely brilliant. Great numbers. Yeah, I mean, it's fairly recent. Got a question from Michelle, who I believe is Michelle at Canterbury, which kind of links to it. But how did you decide which stories to highlight? You mentioned tabloid broadsheet, which is a great turn of phrase, nothing else. And yeah, what did you do by way of public engagement? Well, it actually says was there public engagement, but I'm going to assume on her behalf.
Yeah, yes, we talk to where we can. We talk to local history societies and the town councils and people we know, local historians. So one, we want to check our facts with them, but also get their angles, whether those stories are useful and interesting. So yes, we definitely do it in that way. And obviously we like to get feedback from the public on each story. But the way in which we chose them is, I guess we can only have so many, and we've got so much in our archives. We did kind of research and just seeing what leaps out to us and what matches a building that looks viable within I suppose, a reasonable safe route to walk around the town centre, because we can't take people across very busy roads and things like that, or too far out at the moment.
Great, good, thanks. That's a really good answer there. So yeah, that is Angie from Oxfordshire, just to clarify. There was a few questions about accessibility, which we don't really have time to cover, but the very short version is it's a fully accessible product. Calvin, big exponents of not just accessible design, following standards, having, say, audio where relevant to be able to be read out, working in conjunction with assistive technologies, but also that additional layer of accessibility, which is, flagging maybe areas in the real world that might be challenging, depending on, the needs of particular users, that sort of stuff. So we can talk more about accessibility if everyone wants to know a full version of Calvin's stance on it and the product and everything else, but we don't really have time. So thank you very much to Terry again.